Time again for another installment of the basics, and I'm going to be doing strategy for the opening 3 turns in the Star Trek card game. So once again, I'm going to be shuffling my deck before I start the game. And for this one, I'm using my smaller Klingon deck because it makes it a bit easier to visually show you how this is going to work in the first few turns. So once I'm done shuffling, I will get on with it. Okay, so you've just started a game of the Star Trek customizable card game, and you've got your space line, you've done your seed phase, your outpost is out, your dilemmas are all placed, and you've just drawn your 7 cards to start the game. And this is what you have to do in the first 3 turns. This is a different animal than Magic the Gathering, and there's a lot more to do during a turn. Now, with your 7 cards, the first thing you notice is Red Alert, which is an event card. Allows you to play as many ship, personnel, and equipment cards as desired each turn. This is an important card to get out right away if you have the first turn and it's in your opening hand. You're going to want to play that immediately before anything else can happen. Chances are your opponent won't be able to block it just yet on his first turn. Get it out. You go back to your hand. You have a ship. You can play that. You have a personnel reports. So you have a personnel and a ship, and you also have an equipment card sitting in your hand. This is a plasmadyne relay. While on a ship, range and shields are +2. While on a station or outpost, shields are +4. So for example, weapons and shields are each 7. This gives it a bearing of 9 when you're on the space line, and since you're still at an outpost, that's +4, so now you have 11 of each. No one's going to bother you. You got those out right away. So you're going to want to draw a few cards. Your opponent goes and does his thing. It's back to your turn. Now, you still have your event out, Red Alert. It hasn't been nullified yet that you're aware of. And there's really not much you can do at this point because your opponent is not out there doing missions yet. He's still loading up his ship. You haven't used an interrupt on his turn because he doesn't have enough out there to interrupt. So, what you can do is play Static Warp Bubble if you happen to have this. Opponent must discard 1 card before ending each turn. Not cumulative. So once this... it's going to be a good card to get out. And while you still have the Red Alert IP scanner, which is an interphasic scanner, you can put it out and keep it on your ship if you want. You don't really have any of these things like plasma creatures or brain drain or phase matter going on yet. Leave it in your hand. Draw your card. Your opponent goes and does his thing. You're back on your 3rd turn now. You can move your ship because this bird of prey has a very simple requirement that is met by this personnel. Unfortunately, as much as you want, you are not going to get a lot done in missions and the dilemmas with 1 person on a ship, so don't even bother. Keep checking what you have in your hand on your 3rd turn. If there's something that you can play, like the line must be drawn here. If your opponent has any of these cards out listed here, like Amanda Rogers, Kevin Exbridge, or Q2, he loses 5 points. So you want to see what's in your hand and see what's applicable at that time. Early in the game, you're not going to have a use for a lot of power cards. You're going to maybe get 8 or 9 turns in before you can start laying the smack down. So what I would suggest is, if you are able to keep the Red Alert on the table, get your personnel, equipment, and ships out first. That is paramount in this game. Paramount. Now, as I mentioned on the previous episode that dealt with the first 3 turns of Magic the Gathering, like I said there, you're not always going to get that kind of a starting hand, especially in Star Trek customizable card game. Depending on the deck you're using, how big the deck is, what's in the deck, you might get a different hand, radically different, where you can't use a strategy like this. But in most cases, anyone who properly builds a deck in this game, you're going to have multiple copies of Red Alert, and chances are you're going to get one in your opening hand. That has to go down first. More often than not, when I have played in the past, I've always had at least one ship and 2 or 3 personnel in my opening hand in that area. And with Red Alert, you get all that out quickly, because the sooner you can start attempting missions and dispensing with the dilemmas underneath them, the sooner you score points, the sooner you win the game. It's that simple. Have a great day, everybody.